The minutes from our September 16th, 2021 open meeting. A motion to approve those. Ms. Strawn, second, Councillor Thompson. Any comments, discussions? Those in favor? Thank you. And there are a second set of minutes distributed October the 6th, 2021, our budget meeting. A motion to approve those. Mr. Khan? Ms. Strawn, any comments, questions? Those in favor? Great. I'll hand it over to the chief for one of the exciting opportunities we have at our board meeting is to recognize our newly promoted individuals. Chief, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It is with great pleasure that I introduce Inspector Carl Moore. Many members of the board have worked with him in the past in his role as executive office to the office of the chief. Carl was originally from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and joined the cadet program in 1998 with the Barrie Police Service, and then he went on to attend the Ontario Police College shortly after that. He spent his early part of his career in uniform operations. He was part of the emergency response unit, and later that was developed into our full-time tactical support unit, and he was served as the team leader until 2013. And at that time, in March of 2013, Carl was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and he performed duties in operational services. He served as I've mentioned, the executive officer position to myself for over 2.5 years. And in September of 2019, he was promoted to staff sergeant, and he performed duties in operational services that looked after our traffic services, tactical support unit, marine unit, community services, and our emergency support unit. And he was also played a large part in our police operations center in our response to COVID-19 pandemic. In 2019, he completed his disaster and emergency management program at Ryerson University. And in 2020, he graduated from the Rotman School of Management Police Leadership program through the University of Toronto. This month, he was promoted to inspector and was assigned to operational services. Just a way of background, Carl continues to do volunteer work with the Barrie Ball Hockey organization, Special Olympics Ontario, and he is the deputy chair of the Community Relations Committee for St. John Ambulance here locally in our city. So, Carl, welcome and congratulations.
Thanks, Chief.
And just so people on the screen can actually see you, and then we'll do just so people in the community, Inspector Carl Moore, you have to. Okay, very well done. We'll just do a picture with the background, Carl. How's that? Very nice, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Inspector Moore, on behalf of the board, congratulations. As the chief said, you are no stranger to this board, so we thank you, congratulate you with the continued service.
All right, look forward to working with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done, Carl. Thanks.
Moving on to the agenda, presentations, our second quarter statistics. I'm going to hand it over to the chief to introduce the presenter, but the deputy Alan is well known. Please, if you can walk us through our Q2 statistics.
Thanks, Chair, members of the board. Thank you. Victoria, you have the PowerPoint available. Thank you.
And there was a few people that were involved.
Oh, I'm going to say that.
Thanks.
So I want to acknowledge that we have our records manager, Nicole Lees. She's joining us virtually. She is the subject matter expert behind the data. She's the one that makes us look good and helps us from stumbling through presentations such as this. Further interesting tidbit I want to share about Nicole. A couple of weeks ago, we attended the OACP annual general meeting. Nicole was invited, made us very proud. She sang beautifully the national anthem in attendance for all the guests. So well done, Nicole. Thank you for that, and thank you for your contributions to this presentation. Also want to thank Victoria, who is the creative expert behind much of the work that I get to present on, as well as our two new co-ops in the analytics side, Michael and James. Go to the next slide there, please. So good morning. I want to talk about the data that we're about to present. There's a few disclaimers that I think are important for understanding the context of our stats as we keep them. Please note that this data that we're presenting today is current as of September the 13th. The systems used to track information are live and therefore subject to experience fluctuations of increase or decrease in values past the specified date. So that said, as prepared on the 13th, the stats may be a little bit different because as they move through our systems, they get recoded and reclassified on any given day. Data is also subject to influencers, including some matters that are, pardon me, enforcement driven or proactive. We've implemented initiatives that may or may not have contributed to a sudden rise or fall of statistical findings, depending on when the initiatives have taken place. Further, influencers include complaint-driven or reactive matters, and that's related to the public volume of complaints due to events experienced or expressed within the community, nationally or globally, and it contributes to the rise and fall of statistics. It's also important to remember that the data is not an absolute true reflection of what is happening within our community. The survey collects information only on crimes that come to the attention of the police. The data, therefore, does not contain account of all the crimes happening within our community. Some crimes are never detected, and of those that are, some are never brought to the attention of police. Lastly, the Poisson distribution is a statistical method used to calculate normal levels. That is the method that is used behind our dashboards when we're accumulating this data. We're going to hear about uniform crime reporting. That is abbreviated as UCR, and this data reflects reported crime that has been substantiated by the Barrie Police Service. These are the items that we're going to look through today on our separate PowerPoints. It will include a 5-year comparison quarterly for each group. It is then shown as a 5-year comparison for the first half of the year for each group to show different trends up or down. Next slide, please. So this is our calls for service. These statistics are generated from our computer-aided dispatch, or CAD, not necessarily tied to the specificity of the UCR coding. Call takers assign a call type based on information initially provided by the complainant. Once an officer responds to the actual occurrence, the type in UCR information could differ from the call type. An example very common to us, we will get a call saying, "I've been robbed." In fact, they've had something stolen from there, or it's a theft. So we would recode that from robbery to theft. You'll see on here, we have our 6-month on the right side of the PowerPoint versus the first and second quarter on the left side. You will see the trends for the first 6 months tend to be pretty consistent. Thank you. Currencies and violations. Occurrences are captured in niche for all police activity, not just calls from complainants. Not all occurrences are CAD generated. Occurrences can also be from self-reports online, as well as police generated occurrences. Basically, occurrences are accumulation of CAD calls, cop logic, online self-reporting, and police generated occurrences. It's also important to note that one arrest does not necessarily equal one charge. So on this slide, you'll see the UCR violations we're looking at the Q2 numbers on the right side, the UCR violations versus how many charges versus how many arrests. They're not always identical. Our calls for services and our occurrences also can fluctuate based on these matters. Thank you. Provincial offense notices, you'll see a large increase. That can be attributed to an improved deployment model that allows the traffic unit to increase focus on areas of traffic concerns that are received from the public and the City of Barrie councillors. It allows us to efficiently investigate motor vehicle collisions, and it also provides increased focus on intersections that collisions frequently occur. An improved method of communication between the Barrie Police Service and City Hall pertaining to citizens' concern about traffic issues amongst their neighborhoods has been a big part of our enforcement strategies. You'll see in 2021, our numbers are as high as they've been any time, and we expect that to continue with the new deployment model. The trend over the last 6 months is continually going up. Thank you. Notable events, the COVID demonstrations. We had 34 charges. We added one. So we had 22 PONs, 9 Part 3 summonses. That's a provincial offense that is elevated to the highest level. It's a summons to court. And we've had 3 criminal charges stemming out of 2 criminal events and arrests. This data was updated as fresh as yesterday. Yep. Another notable event was Road Safety Week. On the week of May 17th, it was a national campaign aimed at making Canada's roads the safest in the world. These are stats that are presented by the traffic unit and their specific involvement. We laid 133 provincial offenses. We laid 4 charges of impaired driving by drug and 1 charge of breach of probation. Crimes against persons increased quarter to quarter, but overall remain within normal levels and are still trending downward long term, which is indicated on the bottom right side of the slide. Property crime is increased quarter to quarter, but overall still on a downward trend. The past few quarters, the numbers were decreasing. In all likelihood, the pandemic restrictions are likely a contributor. And perhaps the uptick could be attributed to loosened restrictions and or the relaxing of the public during that time period. So COVID has been an absolute influencer in the property crime section for us, and we believe a lot of it would be just people who are home. Thank you. Drug offenses. Numbers lower quarter to quarter. We continue to see an increase of methamphetamine. It's a drug of choice right now because it doesn't need to be imported and can be made locally. This category does not include overdose information statistics within our community. Very often is not always drug-related charges that are as a direct result of, if not always, drug-related charges are as a direct result of proactive enforcement, as I explained earlier. Police activity can appear to inflate the crime severity index. Where drug-related charges appear to be on the increase, it may be the case that more resources have been directed to combat social problems that indicate positive police activity. So therefore, the more we throw at it, the higher the numbers are going to be. Sorry. Criminal traffic violations. These are not tickets, these are criminal offenses. It does not include any of the provincial acts. There are no notable increases or decreases in these criminal traffic stats. Thank you. Other criminal code violations, there were no notable increases or decreases. Bail violations and fail to appear are potentially down due to rolling court adjournments. Most court dates, when someone has not appeared for court, were just rolled over, where normally that would constitute a criminal offense. This has continued for months through the COVID times and subsequently have turned into bench summonses. Now with the fail to appears, with the end of into the 4th wave of the pandemic and the courts reopening, we are seeing that we're going to be laying fail to appear charges. We are expecting to see these stats trend upwards as we hold people accountable for missing court. The miscellaneous section, this is referred to as the 8000 series code. It's reserved for internal codes and municipal bylaws. StatsCan does not use this series for violations or any analytical purposes, but this is a big part of what we do. We record and track this information within our RMS to complete analysis, resource planning, and program development within our community. Subject to that, there's I'm open to any questions, Chair.
Any question for the deputy or his team? Councilor Thompson, please.
Thanks for the presentation and to your team. You can see that the information we're starting to take is going to really help with the way we deliver service stuff. The call for service is up quite a bit. Would you say that's COVID related, or that was on slide?
Looking here, this slide on slide, could you put up the call for service slide, please, Victoria?
Well, in 2020, we've seen about a 3,000 reduction. it seems to be coming back up.
Yeah, so we did report all through the pandemic through the AOC that our calls for service were stable and in fact down for some time. There was less traffic on the road. There was less crime, as I talked about the property crime being reported. So those are all indicators of what we're doing through the COVID practices. It was limited like ride enforcement, although we still absolutely initiated it. Person-to-person contact was really regulated and looked at. So I would fully expect with the opening of society and stores now being open and restaurants being open, all those things would obviously generate more calls based on just the reopening of the province.
Through the chair, on the PONs, the numbers are, and you had mentioned about the engagement from City Hall through council and residents able to report high traffic areas, or do you find that's because of the targeted approach to the policing, it's actually resulted in more PONs?
Target approach, Councillor through the chair. The target approach is definitely a part of it, but it's also the deployment model that we're using. We've really made a robust approach where our traffic services can be deployed as a team. And that is also what has allowed them to have the communication with City Hall, with the councillors, with the community to target areas of concern. We do go to some areas of concern sometimes, and there may not be as robust a problem that someone might be complaining, but we evaluate them as we can and we report back. Where we do see a problem, when we look at our stats and we see a high intersection, high risk intersections, we focus on those as a matter of public safety, not as much as enforcement, but definitely I would say the bulk of the success of the increased enforcement would be the deployment model, which again ties into and allows the ability to have the communication that we do.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Sean?
A little bit of a follow-up to Councillor Thompson's question, but when we look at the PONs and also, I think you referred to it on the drug offenses charge, those are two areas where we're being more proactive as a service. And so it's resulting in increased charges. Is there any way for us to evaluate as service if things are improving for the community based on being proactive and increasing the charges? For example, are the streets safer? Like, are drivers becoming better drivers, or are people trafficking less drugs? Can we determine that at all based on these types of statistics?
It's a very fair question, and it's a very hard question to answer, because the real answer to the job that we do is the absence of crime and the absence of calls for service, but that doesn't exist. There are a lot of crimes out there that we may not know about. We are targeting, traffic, impaired driving, collision intersections, any drug enforcement. We work hard to do everything. We never turn our backs on any of that. But is there a way to know? It's really a measure of what the community tells us and what the feedback is, and then what we can do with that to hear them and engage in any sort of targeted approach that we can. We are working with the community safety wellbeing team now in this pilot, and that is evidence-based approach. So when we look at our data, we will focus on different areas of social issues, and that some of that would include, as you've already heard, the opioid intervention and stuff like that, with hopefully a wraparound service that will then prevent the recurrence of these crimes. But this is something that is going to take some time, some re-education of not just the way we do business, but also how the community accepts us doing this type of business. It's a team approach, and it is really with the community involvement that we will know how well we're doing in the community.
Thanks, and I appreciate the answer, and I know that it must be difficult to check these things. And I'm hopeful that with the evidence-based policing initiatives, that maybe we can get a better handle on, like, are we improving the safety of our community, and also are we doing the most effective type of policing in terms of like giving people traffic tickets? Is that the best way to make somebody be a better driver and cause less harm on the road, or is it something else? And I'm glad that we're open to this idea of continually looking at that.
Yeah, everything now that we do, almost everything that we do internally and externally is based on evidence and outcomes. And how do we measure those outcomes? And are they making, is our initiative making an effect on the community? If it does, there's room there for growth and improvement. We always are reevaluating if it is effective and if it is the best approach. And we're constantly researching, not just internally in their community, but through partnerships at the OACP and the CACP, and lobbying government as well for change.
Mr. Khan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deputy. One question, and I don't know how to approach the answer, but that's your job, not mine, I guess. And that is, I'm wondering, are you noticing a sea change or a culture shift amongst the silent majority who you typically don't hear from? And I would extend that courtesy to the politicians as well, not the recovering ones, in terms of who you represent, the vocal ones or the ones you never hear from. In terms of the work that you're doing, obviously based in evidence, but I'm curious, are you hearing something? Are you noticing something in terms of, are people tired of sitting passively and letting things happen? And are they wanting to see more of your proactive measures? I don't know how you interpret that question, but it's out there.
I could start the answer. I would invite the chief or Deputy Johnson to answer that as well. I would say that this is something that we deal with all the time. We hear people in our community. We have our friends and colleagues, our peers professionally that speak about what they think. But the reality is, most people are, as you say, Mr. Khan, the silent majority. And we have done our surveys. Inspector Burke runs a unit, and in a population of 150,000, we have 1,500 respondents for our community public safety. We want to hear from the silent majority. We need this information. We need to know if we're doing things the way the community wants us to. So we're constantly climbing that hill, and the more feedback we get, the more effective we can make ourselves and hopefully provide the service to the community that they deserve.
Barrie, please.
Yeah, two quick questions, and thanks again for the report. And I appreciate the information. There's been an evolution of how the statistical reports have been presented. Nicole will probably remember 10 years ago, they were much different. It was a sort of matrix on a piece of paper, and that was it. So I appreciate all the additional analytical work and detail that's gone into it. I wondered what this presentation would look like if we weighted each kind of those offenses for how serious the harm is and how much time we spend on that call. And the reason I ask that question is because, when you present a PON or traffic stop opposite a drug call or opposite against a crime against person, obviously the crimes against persons represent complex cases that can involve dozens of members of the service and hundreds of hours. The traffic stop, depending on what happens in court, is hopefully only a few hours of one officer's time, or a few anyway. And so I guess one of the things that would be great to help me as a board member, talk to the community about what we're seeing, is to in some way present that differential. And I'm not sure what that looks like as I sit here today, but I think when I talk about crime to our community, obviously the primary concern is crimes against persons, because that's the greatest severity and what people have the greatest fear of. It's certainly not the most common complaint. I would say the most common complaint's at the exact opposite end of the spectrum. It's noisy mufflers. aftermarket modifications to make, that generates more complaints than anything else that the police service, to my office, that the police service might be expected to deal with. So that's just, I guess, a comment on the presentation. And my takeaway, and I guess this is the question, Wiley, is what I took away from that presentation, we're doing more proactive work on drugs, which is really good, by way of commentary. And we're back to pre-pandemic or even above levels of PON, traffic enforcement, and related matters. Those are two big takeaways that I can report back to our 153,000 residents, because those are two areas of lots of interest. I mean, I guess my question is there anything else out of the presentation that you would highlight as being particularly new or different, as we're going into the fall of 2021 in terms of our activity? I mean, you've hit some highlights of things. We're seeing more meth, but what you're seeing in the community and what you're seeing keeping the service busy.
Thanks, Mayor, through the chair. No, I think you've taken out much of what we wanted to take. I think there was a sense of calm in that the stats, as you look over the last 6 months for most things, are either trending same or down. I think it's important that the community knows that some of these spikes in service would be returning back to normal, as you suggested, but also the work that the members of the Barrie Police Service are doing to be proactive in the enforcement of not just PONs and drugs, but anything that is a problem. And we also are always been highlighted very much for the work we're doing with the province and this community in human trafficking as well. At the end of the day, I think that it's difficult to show quarterly stats, to show true trends, and I don't want to get Deputy Johnson going on that, on his evidence-based things, because he would like to see a much more longitudinal study. But I think you hit the nail on the head, Mayor, and we're out there, we're working, we're identifying, and we're listening. And when we hear, we do something about it, and we're getting the job done.
Okay.
To add a couple of comments in regards to that. And Mary, you have spoken to the high harm individuals, high harm offenses, high harm areas within our city, the hotspots, and weighting through our crime severity index. There's a lot of work that we're doing and leading across the country on this, and we will be presenting to the board some of our findings in future board meetings. So I'll just say, stay tuned, board, because we have some phenomenal work that we would like to present to the board on this, and it's impacting the safety and well-being of our community.
Oh, geez, now you're just teasing us. But I appreciate that, the teaser there, because, I remember very well seeing some numbers from Philadelphia that sort of looked at a map and weighted the impact to people of what we did and the highest harm offenses. And, when you do that, and I know there's been some preliminary work on this already through the mapping of crime by road segments and things. I think when you start to do that, we start to see another whole layer of information to these statistics, which, I mean, we've come so far in reporting out to the public on what's going on in our community and what our members are doing and responding to. And this presentation is a great example of it. And to then sort of expand on it by focusing on those most severe things, that's going to be really helpful to me as a board. So I'll look forward to that next month. Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Wiley.
Any other questions? Just my own comment, Deputy Allen, I've only been around about 3 years, not 10 years like the mayor, but clearly every statistical report where we continue to see improvement in the statistical analysis, and that because it takes time to develop the data and sort the data. And obviously, Strawn's question about the coordination of the data. I see every presentation improving on the next. So I thank you and your team for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a true team effort, and thanks to the team for all your contributions.
Chief, moving on, introduce Inspector Burke and his team to give the board an update on the Barrie Police Service Board and strategic.
Great, thank you very much. I'm just going to have Inspector Work come to the top and we will share and we will introduce all members. Thank you. Phenomenal job by the team on this also.
Thanks, Chair, and to the members of the board. I'm going to call Staff Sergeant Rose Richter to the podium for self and Victoria. We hear Victoria's name quite often. They produced this out of their office, out of the strategic planning office. That is where they're gathering the data. That's where they're keeping track of the strategic plan. That's where the annual report was also produced out of. So they have a very good handle on this. And without further ado, I'll call Staff Sergeant Richter.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, and thank you for being here today. The service adherence services board 2020 business plan ensure a safe, professional, accountable, sustainable policing services. Today's presentation provides a summary of our ongoing efforts in achieving of our strategic plan. We will look at our progress since the plan's launch in 2020 and action over to the year 2021. The strategic plan was created through a collaborative approach involving insight from our Barrie Police Service members, community partners, and local residents. It is guided by 3 strategic priorities as shown. 1, crime prevention, community safety, and law enforcement. 2, community engagement and collaboration. 3, organization excellence and sustainability. These priorities are interdependent with unique goals and corresponding actions that speak to the mission, vision, and values of Barrie Police Service. Similarly, we may find many projects and initiatives overlap by addressing the goals of 2 or all of these priorities at once. Recognizing our projects and initiatives may address more than one strategic priority at a time, we have looked at the frequency in which each priority is addressed. From the start of 2020 to September 30th, 2021, we have reported 203 initiatives. Of those, 27% align with strategic priority 1, 43 with priority 2, and 30% with priority 3. 60% of the initiatives have been newly introduced since the strategic plan's launch. 40% are pre-existing projects that are continued and built on prior strategic plans. Continuing with this broad look, 49% of projects recorded or rendered. 5% are in development, 6% are modified, and 40% being currently in progress. This includes initiatives continued from previous years. Additionally, we have found that just over 65% of initiatives align with the 4 approaches to improve community safety and well-being, as identified in the City of Barrie's Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Of that total, 13% touch on incident response, 18% align with risk intervention, 25% social development, and 44% harm prevention. Alignment with the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan will continue to be monitored. Overall, for the period of January 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2021, there have been 183 initiatives. These include new and existing projects from previous strategic plans, some projects which have started in 2020 and have been completed this year, and additionally, initiatives that are modified due to COVID-19, such as our volunteer programs, including Citizens on Patrol.
The following slides provide a summary of how these ongoing initiatives address the plan. Throughout 2021, we find that 24% of initiatives align with strategic priority 1, 38% with priority 2, and again 38% with priority 3. Over the next few slides, we will take a closer look at how the goals of each priority are addressed along with project highlights. Regarding strategic priority 1, 38% focus on maintaining a visible and approachable police service. 30% address safer roads and pathways, and 33% supportive victim services. The Barrie Police Service continues to concentrate efforts on increasing the feeling of safety in downtown Barrie, public parks, roadways, and pathways. Examples of this include the introduction of a community safety and well-being team and officer, with an overall mandate of improving community safety and well-being throughout our city. These are both driven by evidence-based decisions. The Barrie also completed several traffic safety awareness campaigns and projects, such as hotspot traffic enforcement, Project Erase, and Project Wake Up Call. The Barrie Police has continued to expand victim support services and have launched 2 apps in 2021. The first one being Speak Out, an anonymous reporting tool for victims of sexual assault, and the second being What in 3 Words. This app offers call takers and our communication center the ability to identify the exact location of a person who has the app downloaded to their mobile device. It supports us in directing the appropriate help, whether that be police, fire, or paramedic services. These efforts, along with other projects, will be further evaluated through our annual community safety survey to be distributed in the coming weeks. Looking at the goals of strategic priority 2, we see that 43% focuses on policing. 32% address trust and transparency with the community. And 25% touched upon authentic to-be communication with the community and members. Projects supporting community engagement and collaboration include Barrie participation in community events that are feasible. These include virtual events such as It Starts with Awareness Campaign, Law Enforcement Torch Run, Open Punch for Special Olympics, and Ride for Heart. The Barrie Police has also participated in public presentations throughout the year, one of which was a collaborative town hall, helping inform our local community on safety and well-being and COVID-19 precautions. Furthermore, some initiatives previously on hold due to COVID-19 have been modified and reinstated, such as our citizens patrol and select facility. The Barrie Police Service continues to grow our online presence. The service held 49 virtual safety and well-being presentations for youth, created an online interactive annual report for 2020, and developed online resources such as the school's portal. This portal allows for CAA safety patrol training, lockdown drills, class meetings to be booked within seconds. These tools are examples of how the Barrie Police strengthens collaborative communication efforts for trust and transparency with our community as resources and services continue to expand year over year. Looking at the goals of strategic priority 3, you can see 27% focus on a safe, 32% address progressive professional development, and 41% relate to leaders in innovative policing practices. The Barrie continues to improve innovative policing as the service continues to explore evidence-based policing practice through projects such as body worn campus, police visibility studies, church diversion programs, and implement partner violence recidivism. The service maintains a focus on ensuring a safe and supportive workplace through initiatives such as systemic culture systems and the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Professional development is also a large focus within the service. Its opportunities have included equity, diversity, and inclusion workshops, specialized training, and trauma-enforced as well as evidence-based policing presentations. Additionally, the Barrie Police continues to pay attention to future sustainability with the addition of a new canine partner. The service's efforts in pioneering technological enhancements to strengthen internal databases, processes, and resources. An example of these enhancements is shown for a strengthened internal strategic plan database. This includes a centralized internal resource link for our members to better understand the strategic plan and view a live data dashboard for instant strategic plan updates. The data dashboard provides an immediate summary of our existing projects and initiatives as they correlate with the strategic plan. In addition to this, we are excited to introduce a new online interactive version of the strategic plan. The design is based on the 2020 annual report's virtual layout and help navigate readers to additional information and resources. To help you explore this page, we have created a 90-second video. The strategic plan is a live and dynamic document. The Barrie Police Service continues to progress and all priorities, objectives, and actions are monitored and support the local community. The Barrie Police provides professional, accountable, and sustainable policing services. We wish to thank you for your time today and look forward to our next update.
Thank you very much. Both for your presentation and the update. Any questions? Any questions from the members of the board? Mayor Lehman, please.
Thanks very much. So first of all, the quality of the communications here is really great to be providing that out to the community to be able to navigate the plan, see what substantive changes and actions are being taken by the service and what progress is being made on them. I think this is there's some excellent tools here and obviously comprehensive tracking going on. One of the things I guess I'd ask as a question is, are we tracking the impact of these initiatives in addition to tracking the sort of completion status? So I think the reporting obviously has excellent graphics and metrics and sort of lists to indicate whether or not the task is being completed or the initiatives being completed. How are we tracking whether each of those initiatives is having an impact? I think Director Strawn asked a similar question on the previous presentation too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll jump in. for that. One of the ways we're doing that is going to be launched in the next few weeks, the community safety survey, getting the feedback from the community in regards to various perceptions of safety and things like that. Also, and Mr. Mayor, you brought that up earlier in regards to measuring the harm. How is that harm being reduced? So we're looking at different statistical ways rather than just call counts or occurrence counts. We're trying to analyze that to try to get an evidence-based reflection of that. The example of and I know Deputy Johnson will jump out of his seat when we talk about the bright colored green shirts or potentially even a multicolored vehicle and the effect on that. And if you talk about evidence-based, and a number of us have taken that course at Cambridge, a lot of us are taking ideas from that in regards to what amount of time does the mere presence of police alter the actions, A, of the community, or B, of potential crimes in that area. So those are some of the ongoing initiatives. The way we're collecting the data now is much more efficient for the strategic plan. Prior to this in years past, we used to go out after the fact to try to gather the data. And honestly, I was one of the ones that had to give the data. It was a painful process. Trying to maintain it now in a live format, we're hoping to be able to utilize that data in real time and look at it, apply it in an evidence-based manner, and then give some feedback in regards to how the projects are working.
Okay, so this is a comment I've made to our senior management at the city as well, is, I think the evolution, like to me, we had earlier strategic plans that were not particularly well communicated. The documents improved, I think, over the years. Now we're using multiple platforms. Now we're tracking using the dashboard. That's a huge step forward. And maybe version 3.0 is the one that says, goes from, not just how did we accomplish the task, but did the task have an impact? And to be able to report back on both, to know, not just we got it done, but it worked or it didn't. And that ultimately is what helps us, I think, with strategic planning for the next step. And again, I know many of these initiatives themselves have that feedback loop already. And in some cases, it's just a case of tying it back into the strategic planning reporting as well. But I do want to thank you again for the work on the presentation, and as a board member to be getting regular updates on the status of it and to have a dashboard is light years ahead of where we were even a few years ago. So thanks for this.
Thank you very much. And it really is about the team that has moved us forward, not just reporting on outputs, but outcomes within the community and within the service. And I'll do another teaser. We'll be hearing more about this.
Again, thank you both and the entire team for the update. It's clear we continue to move forward. Thank you very much. Two items on the consent agenda. Would anyone like either of those items pulled or questions on them? A motion to receive the two items on the consent agenda. Councilor Thompson. Questions, comments, those in favor? Thank you. Also in our package, I believe it was two reappointment of special constables, a motion to reappoint Special Constable Shannon. Oh, I don't know, my arm's not long enough here. Chief Caledine, and Special Constable Brianna Henderson. Motion, please. Mr. Khan, any questions, comments? Those in favor? Thank you. Back to you, Chief, please, for your update for the board.
Thank you very much, members of the board. Sergeant Tellerico will just put a couple of slides up as we follow through on the chief's update. The first item that I'd like to speak to is the COVID update, and I'm very pleased to report that 90% of the Barrie Police Service is fully vaccinated. As we're seeing some changes in the community in regards to this. I would like to thank the Police Operations Center Pandemic Response Team under the leadership of Inspector Peter Dusnap. There are some prominent individuals that have assisted with our response since the beginning of the pandemic. The update today will really focus in on some of the occupational health and safety practices that we have in place, and a special thank you to our wellness coordinator, Katie Palermo. When we think of our continued enhancements in regards to our health screening, we continue to use our active screening as all members of the service enter all of our facilities within the city of Barrie as they report for duty, or they've been out of the facilities for a couple of hours when they reconvene at our facilities. We're looking at ensuring that our members are donning all the appropriate PPEs when indoors or when they are closer than 2 meters. We are also, as we've seen within the community, recommending that all members become vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccination protocols that are in place and what is available to everybody. We continue to evolve our process in regards to the directive. So as of yesterday, we issued a directive to our membership, and the real focus is about providing a healthy and safe environment for all of our members when they come into work every day, and we're looking at ensuring that our public are safe when we are interacting with them. So in addition to all of the practices that we have had in place for the last 19 months actually in our response, we are including the rapid testing for our members, for those that are unvaccinated. So our directive includes the rapid testing, includes the educational piece for our membership. So that is just a brief update to the board in regards to that portion of it. If we move on, traditionally we provide information in regards to calls for service, but we did hear a very comprehensive statistical report by Deputy Allen. Thank him for that work, along with our records manager, Nicole Lees. If we look at some of the work that we are doing within our community, I'm very pleased to see that society is opening up and we're able to do some of the work that we have done in the past. So this is just a list of some of the things that we have done since we last met as a board and as a service. I would like to highlight the pledge of reconciliation that members of our service participated in the recognition of commemoration of the Canada's first day of truth and reconciliation. And we have made a commitment as a service to gain fundamental knowledge and cultural awareness about and with and from our Indigenous peoples. And we are looking at actively seeking opportunities to engage with the Indigenous community and listen to members, survivors, and elders, and traditional knowledge keepers, and other leaders within our community. And we are here to support and engage in Indigenous-led conversations, educational initiatives, and solutions. And we will be hearing from our Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee next month on some of the initiatives that we are involved in. If we look at some of the highlights since the board last met, I'll just draw your attention to a few of them. They are listed here. There was a lot of attention placed on the graffiti investigation that was completed by members of our service, and we laid more than 100 charges after this extensive investigation. In regards to the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, the Barrie Police Service were actively involved in that conference that was hosted most recently, and Deputy Johnson participated as a panelist on the evidence-based policing session. You heard that Nicole Lee sang the national anthem representing the Barrie Police Service. I was involved in the opening ceremonies and a panel on intimate partner violence. I'd like to highlight some of the work that Staff Sergeant Morehouse has been involved in with the Evidence or Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and would like to say that she was nominated for a Serving with Pride award and was part of the Serving with Pride promotional process or promotional activities for the Serving with Pride conference that was held a gala that was held last weekend. We continue to look for grant opportunities, and pleased to announce that our evidence-based Inside Out program received $100,000 from the provincial government in regards to that. Also, this last week, we conducted 2 days of training for our emergency support unit. It was in class and scenario-based training, and I will say that we deployed our team twice within the last week to do search and rescue incidences. And if you remember, we did a media launch in regards to our new RPass. We were able to use that equipment operationally also. And just yesterday, members of the leadership team, the police operations portion, and members of the City of Barrie and other partners, we did have a tornado after action meeting in regards to how we need to approach things and some of our successes and some of our lessons learned. So that was a very productive meeting. And lastly, I'd like just to highlight the introduction of one of our new canine members of the service, and just give a little bit of background in regards to the naming of our new canine Roots. Roots is named in honor of Sergeant Roots, as he's fondly was known as. He suffered from some mental health challenges, and he ended his life, but we have the support of his wife Sarah and children, and they're very appreciative of this honor, and we welcome Roots to the team with a special honor of our OPP colleague in this. So Rooter is completed 60 weeks of training with Constable Chubb and is ready to be deployed and is learning from his other partners. And that is the conclusion of the very brief update for the board. And I guess we can go right into any community concerns or any questions.
Thanks, Chief, for the update. Questions for the Chief or community concerns? I think we can join those two agenda items.
Actually, Chair, I did commit to the board that I would provide a brief overview in regards to the financial variance. We will see a report next month to the board, but just an overview. We reported last month that we were in a deficit situation, and would just like to advise the board that we still project right now $1 million deficit, but we are hoping that we will qualify and receive funding from the COVID-19 through the City of Barrie and the government. So I anticipate that would be approximately $500,000. So that will assist us, and remind boards that the board that we have cut all discretionary spending was halted in August, and we continue to do some analytical work. From a salaries and benefits perspective, I'd just like to indicate that we anticipated some savings with our court security model, but must say that the courthouse has increased their in-person hearings. So we've seen an increase in that area rather than maintaining a decrease in the presence of our special constables in that area. We still continue to monitor our overtime. Very happy to report that some of the secondment opportunities that had been completed this year, we have had confirmation that will continue in some of the those positions will continue in 2022, which is a great opportunity for our service. And we've had 2 new secondment positions that have been presented to us. In regards to the grant programs, we continue to seek out those opportunities, and we're waiting for final approval on some of those grant opportunities, and I hope we're successful in those. We know that the Solicitor General is reviewing our port security prisoner transportation grant program, and I originally indicated that we expected those funds to be the same. I am expecting further confirmation of the same, or if there's going to be any changes, and I'll keep the board updated in regards to that. From our general revenues perspective, we anticipate that as the society opens up and some of the regular revenue that we generate, we have seen a projection that is much more positive than we did in June when we originally reported. We have received confirmation that there will be no funding available for the costs that we incurred during our response to the tornadoes. That's just a very brief overview of where we sit in regards to that. There will be a more formal report presented to the board next month.
Chief, I look forward to that presentation, not the deficit, but look forward to the presentation and see how we're exactly shake out by the end of the year. Any questions or comments for the chief? Sure.
Just one comment, review, share to the chief and for the board that the chief's update, I really appreciated the shift in the update. I know we had the stats presentation, but I would suggest that maybe we have a future discussion about having a chief's update that includes some more of the information that you shared today and not just focused on calls for service, because I think that will give us a more fulsome idea of what police service is doing and the good work we're doing. And I just want to say I really did appreciate learning about those initiatives and hearing from you today. So thank you.
So no other questions. Our next meeting is November the 18th. Motion to, oh, sorry, Barrie.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't realize, so you wanted to do community concerns and all at once. I thought we were doing them one after the other. Sorry about that. So 2 community concerns I just wanted to ask the chief to speak a little bit more about. You touched on them both. One is human trafficking, which continues to be relayed to me as a major concern. I know we have not only our unit, but ongoing collaborative work in this area. The second thing, again, maybe at the other end of the severity spectrum, is noisy vehicles. And there was Operation Wake Up Call, but this one continues to be the single largest source of complaints by volume, not maybe by severity, that come into my office. So I wonder if you could just say a little bit more on our efforts on human trafficking and on noisy vehicles.
Thank you very much, Mayor. In regards to our human trafficking perspective in the city, we do have a team that is now part of our crimes against persons in our investigative services area, focusing in on human trafficking. We are partnering with the OPP and other police services in our response to human trafficking. It is still something within our community. And we are on a 400 series highway, so that tends to attract people going from the south up to the north and returning back to the south. So we are, I don't want to use the term hotspot, but we certainly do see it in our community, and it has been a priority for us in regards to that. So education of some of our hotels that do have this as identified as a concern. We're educating our staff in this area, and we are working with our community partners in assisting individuals to exit out of that situation in a safe and secure way. And we do have the women's shelter that is providing significant support in that area. And then in regards to the other item, I think that Deputy Allen spoke in regards to some of the PON enforcement and some of the community concerns in that area. Sergeant Allport in our traffic services has been coordinating specific initiatives to address the concerns in the community. And we do have a way in which we are communicating with members of council and the community to focus in on these type of concerns that are raised.
All
Thanks. Yep.
any other community concerns? Okay, seeing none, I say November 18th, motion to adjourn the meeting. Mr. Scott, Shirley. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.